And the last thing I want to get to on the draft wise, and obviously, it was definitely a SEC Big Ten dominated draft. SEC set the record with 79 players drafted. They had 15 first round picks, which was more picks than anyone out of the quote unquote Power Four had total picks.
It's crazy.
The Big Ten had
79.
79. The Big Ten had 71, which is a record for them, and which is more than the SEC's old record, which was 65.
But do records matter anymore? Like,
no, because they should have more. When you're getting all these teams, of course you're going to have more guys drafted. Like, there would be something wrong if there was not an increase in there. Like, all of a sudden it's not going to flatten out. They combined for 150 picks. That was 58.3% of the draft. 26 of the 32 first round picks. Now, what's interesting, if you pull it back apart now and then put everything back together from where we were conference alignment wise in 2024. So let me do quickly. 2025, ACC had 42 picks. Big 12 had 31 picks. So now if you kind of, again, pull this apart and put them back together, the old Pac-12 would have had 35 picks in this year's draft, a year after having 43 the year before, which was the most since they had 36 in 2017. So if you then pull all that apart, the Big Ten, 19 of those 71 picks that the Big Ten had came from those 4 Pac-12 schools that came over. So that was over 26% of their picks. Obviously, 10 of those came from the Ducks. But, if you get the ACC without the Pac-12 schools, that's down to 37. The Big 12 without the Pac-12 schools, that would have been down to 21. But then you have to add back in Texas and Oklahoma. So then that boosts back up to 35. Okay. So then you actually get ACC, Big 12, Pac-12, really all on the same plane. So nothing would have changed. College football would have been exactly the way it was the last decade without this realignment. So it's just kind of silly. And you kind of see some schools like Arizona had 4, Colorado had 4, UCLA had 5. Meanwhile, Utah only had 1. Washington only had 1 after having 10 the year before. So it was interesting. The Pac-12 would have had a very good year, but it would have been a little bit of a different mix with the players from the certain teams that we would have seen in the past.
Yeah, that's incredible math. Number one, glad you get to do that, and I just get to read
I love doing stuff like that. That's my favorite.
That's your favorite part. I appreciate you sharing that information with all of us here at Y Option. I want to touch on Utah for a second because they had been one of the teams, if not the team, that was kind of leading the old Pac-12 in terms of the amount of players drafted for a while, right? Especially it was like defensive linemen, offensive linemen, corners, linebackers, running back and Zach Moss, tight ends they've had, Dalton Kincaid. Watching them this year, I had a couple thoughts in the draft. One is that when you look at Oregon, and you look at Ohio State, these are some high draft picks players. Yeah. I think when you look at Utah and some of these other teams that have a bunch of free agents, which is pretty much what Utah had, when you do find those teams on the field playing against each other, it's a discrepancy in talent. It just is. So I'm so curious to watch Utah this season and who are their NFL players. They've always played team ball in a really efficient way, but to get into the playoff now and then have to face a Penn State or an Oregon aforementioned, or some of these teams that are rolling with double-digit draft picks, that's where it just becomes a little bit different. You saw it with Indiana and Notre Dame in the first round of the playoff last year. Utah, to me, has always had 6 to 8 draft picks. It just seems that. I don't know if the numbers would bear that out, but that's what I always imagine, right? Bradley and I and company, Efotu and company. And now, of course, injuries hampered that, right? Cam Rising didn't finish the season. Mekhi Bernard, I think he ended up being a free agent. Guys that you thought might have a chance, and I'm sure they thought they would eventually get drafted. So it just kind of was a note for me of to track that next year's draft, because we're seeing some teams separate a little bit. Also, I think UCLA, the year they lose a ton on defense, right? Liatu Latu, the Murphy twins, you're thinking they're done on defense. What do they have? and 3 guys get drafted on the defensive side. Like, I just think you got to give Akaika Malloy and Deshaun Foster a little bit of love. For SC, I get it because like they were young, and last year was a foundational year. I've said that many times, but want to see a receiver drafted. Like, want to see one of those playmakers. Like, that's something that place has always had. In that regard, Woody Marks, congrats to him. He really developed when he got there, coming from Mississippi State. So fired up for him. That's to get a guy in the secondary, gets drafted as well early on, which was pretty cool. Just kind of see that happen for them. And then I think for like the rebuilding teams like UW, it's coming. It's coming.